Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. We're coming to you live. No, we're not live. This is pre-recorded. But we're on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you're listening to us on iTunes right now, please go and leave a 5-star review. I will be reading the best reviews every week, so long as they are 5 stars. Quick shout out to our sponsor, Cushy Dreams. They are my go-to for CBD products. Look at their cool website. I want to tell you guys about Cushy Dreams. Cushy Dreams offers a full lineup of premium smokable CBD. They specialize in extraordinary CBD-rich hemp flower, aka bud, in cans and in pre-roll CBD joints. I think it tastes great. It looks, tastes, smells just like weed, but it's not. And it's for someone who's a little sensitive to weed, like me, it's great because I can have a couple puffs. I really like the joints. Like I was all about their they were selling this 5-pack of joints. I just like, I'm not a teenager. I'm not in my 20s. I'm not going to load up a bowl. I'm not going to smoke out of an apple. I like the joints. I feel like a classy, chic woman, but I have a couple pulls and then within minutes, my mind is calmer. My body is calmer. I really like the relax one. I really like the hustle one. What's great about Cushy Dreams is that they have so many different, I guess they're called strains. Like some of them are more sativa, some of them are more indica blends, and you can enjoy all the health benefits of CBD without getting high. These products have under 0.3% THC. It's cannabis that ships directly to you. It's legal in all 50 states. Join the men and women who are sick of vapes and gummies and want to smoke their CBD. 100% hand trimmed, never machine trimmed. They do independent lab tests to show compliance and purity, and this can all be found on their website, cushydreams.com. Boom, you click on lab results. It's all here. It's all here. Helps me sleep too. It's good for that as well. Best of all, it's grown here in the USA. Cushy Dreams has a CBD flower in pre-rolls, and they come in indica sativa blends like Energy, Hustle, Relax, and Dream. So go to cushydreams.com, KUSHY. Get your high-quality CBD bud. At the checkout, use promo code CMP to get 20% off every order. And smoke your CBD. Guys, I really quickly want to talk to you guys about dates. Dates. I'm doing stand-up. Somewhere near you. Next show is on the 20th of March. Comedians of the Compound is coming to Tiff's Ale House in Morris Plains, New Jersey. Then I'm heading to Florida. Before Florida, actually, I'm going to Wilmington, Delaware. I'm going to be at the House of Laffs, I believe April 23rd and 24th, then heading to Florida to the Boca Black Box on April 30th. May 1st is the Lake Park Black Box in Palm Beach. 5/2 is Side Splitters in Tampa. Then May 9th, Oklahoma City. That's the Bricktown Comedy Club. May 14th and 15th is Comedians of the Compound. We're going to Austin, Texas. May 18th, I'll be at Zany's in Nashville. May 19th, Stand Up Live in Huntsville, Alabama. And then Thursday, June 3rd, Hilarities in Cleveland, and dates in Appleton, Wisconsin to be confirmed. I'm working on them, guys. Very quick shout out to our other sponsor, Lucy. Lucy Nicotine is a company founded by Caltech. That means extra smart scientists and former smokers looking for a better and cleaner nicotine alternative. Finally, a nicotine alternative that doesn't suck. These products were researched and developed for 3 years to be made for people, not patients. Lucy has created a nicotine gum with 4 milligrams of nicotine that comes in wintergreen, cinnamon, pomegranate. I've tasted them all. They're all fabulous. They also have a lozenge and a cherry ice flavor with 4 milligrams of nicotine. Each and every flavor tastes great. It's convenient, discreet. Chew these little bad boys at the gym, on a flight, on the go. It's all good, and they're delish. It's 2021. Get rid of your cigarettes. Unplug your vape. Throw out your dip. If you're dipping, I will never make out with you. Throw it away. And get you some Lucy nicotine gum or lozenges. A subscription to Lucy comes directly to your door each and every month. So simple. You don't have to leave your house. Go to lucy.co. Use the promo code CMP. You're going to get 20% off all products including gum and lozenges. That's lucy.co. Use the promo code CMP at checkout. And I must give this disclaimer. This product contains nicotine derived from tobacco, and nicotine is an addictive chemical. You know what else is addictive? Saving money. So go to lucy.co and use that promo code CMP and chew yourself into happiness. I can't wait to chew on this next guest. He's delicious. He is, I will say this confidently, he is the best LGBTQ comedian in the world. He's got an album out now that is the name of his name, but I'm not going to reveal it because I'm a good host. He's a triple threat. He's gay. He's Mexican. He voted for Trump. He's everything you could ever want. It's Ty Rivera.
Such a great intro. Triple threat. Gay, Mexican, and voted for Trump.
A triple threat. Yes. How are you?
Doing well. Actually, it's raining out right now, but I feel like we've needed it. I'm here in Vegas, so, you know.
Oh my gosh. My sister lives in Vegas. She is in I think she's like, what, 20 or 25 minutes from the Strip? I think she's in the North Las Vegas area.
Okay.
That's near you. But that's neat. That's neat. So you grew up in Arizona. Now you're in Vegas.
Yeah, I was in LA for 14 years.
Oh, wow. So you're part of the great LA purge or the LA moving away?
I was one of the people that left before that. I think I left in 2017. Maybe 2017, the end of 2017. I just got tired of it there. You know, it got to like around 2014 is when it stopped being fun.
Really?
Everybody just started to be too into the like woke culture and that. So I put up with that for a little while. And, you know, that should be ideal for me, being that I'm gay and Mexican.
You would think you're there. I mean, you've got two of the best things going for you. You think the woke crew would welcome you with open arms?
Yeah, no. Instead, they decided that I was too much, and I like, you know, I've never been, even when I was younger, I've never been one of the rah-rah gays, you know, that just goes along with everything the community tells us, and so that's always been a problem for me when it comes to stand-up.
Did you come out while you were living in Arizona still?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I came out when I was 17 years old and I was in Arizona.
And were you living in a city at the time that was more blue, or were you feeling, because I know that you mentioned that you came up in comedy in more kind of like redneck rooms, like in sort of atypical like comedy spaces. How was like coming out in where you were living in Arizona? Did you feel like was it very, did you feel accepted? Did you feel like, oh, I'm in a super, conservative city or area?
Yeah, no, Arizona's always been pretty conservative. Like this, supposedly it turned blue this last election.
Supposedly, right.
Exactly. And
somebody turned it blue.
Yeah, it happened to be blue this time around, but it's always been pretty conservative there. I didn't feel particularly uncomfortable because I came out there, so I was just used to that being the way it was, and so it wasn't really that big of a deal. When it came to stand up, I started doing it in LA, and I think I started in 2003.
Oh,
And
wow.
so
Okay.
Queer Eye had just come out, and like Will and Grace was popular at that time, but the entire country was still just getting used to gay. And
right, because in one of your sets you were like, it just doesn't have the effect that it used to have. Like, it was so funny. Your jokes you're so hilarious, Ty. Like, you were like, it feels like I don't know, like no one's threatened by me anymore. No one doesn't have the same punch.
That doesn't scare people anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what happened. All of a sudden it just became like everything else. And I mean, like, it's good, but at the same time, I'm used to things being a little more difficult.
And then when you said before, there are certain, I don't know if canons is the right word, but there are certain like, almost like, I mean, I'm not like a clique, but you said like, part of being gay is like sort of believing and repeating the same kind of, to you, does it feel kind of like high school in a way that like you have to be about these certain things? Like what do you feel like those certain things are generally?
Yeah, well, I'll give you an example. I was booked to do some gay prides at one point. This was, I think, 2008, something like that. And I was booked to do some gay prides. And I do a joke, or did a joke at the time, that wasn't even anti-gay marriage, but it was about getting an argument with my roommate who was gay at the time. And he like was bugging me about gay marriage. And I just finally told him nobody wants to marry you anyway. And, and it was a joke about him being a loser or whatever, and it was considered like for some reason by some of the different prides that was considered to be anti-gay marriage, and so that's
You were
how
just
sensitive
anti
people are.
him.
Exactly. And I mean, like, but it was considered to be anti-gay marriage, and so I ended up losing a couple of gigs over the fact that I did that joke.
That's insane. And you did this joke on stage, or was this on Twitter, or was this like
Oh, I would
just
do it on stage.
okay,
I would
right,
do it on
right.
stage, and so it just turned into a thing where it's like, well, we heard your joke about gay marriage. And like, in that same joke, I also mentioned that, I didn't like where they were protesting just because the places that they chose to protest were all already gay areas. And so I was like, all you're doing is fucking up traffic for the people that are already on your side. And
Yeah.
but the jokes went over really well with audiences, including gay audiences. But just as far as gay pride went, that was considered anti-gay marriage.
Wow. That's so interesting. It's like you would think this group that seems to be all about acceptance, I don't know. It seems like you're learning like as you go along, like, no, it's like you kind of have to fall in line and be it's I just think it's so interesting because I came into comedy like that's sort of a classic, like feminist, super liberal, like even for like half a moment, maybe I was like, I'm bisexual. And then I realized like, no, I'm just fun at parties. Like I've had 3 threesomes. Like I don't feel like I deserve any kind of title. Like it's just, yeah, maybe I just drink too much. Like I don't know if I'm bisexual.
Maybe I just drink too much. That's
Yeah.
great.
And so, but like, and at first, for 6 years, I was hosting a comedy show at the Stonewall Inn, and like worked my ass off to keep that show going because like the booker of the venue, it's not a comedy venue, it's a landmark spot in New York City and also nationally, and so it's protected, which it needs to be. It's like an important spot. It's historical. There's so much significance there. But I had so much trouble with like the booker of the venue. He kept wanting to change my dates. They'd be like, "Oh, we have a really urgent, Madonna sing along. We have to move you." And I'd be like, but I have all these comics that are coming over from the cellar." And he just like didn't care, nor should he, because it's like it's not a comedy spot. It's like gay Times Square. So, you know, but it was like tough to deal with that constantly. He didn't seem to like respect comedy, or he just wanted asses in the seats and for it to sell, which it did. It was like often sold out. But I started to notice like, and I would actively scout out LGBT talent like all over the city, and I loved it. And I had so many, I like fucking loved doing that show. I loved hosting. I hosted it with like my gay best friend at the time, like this guy Oscar. Well, we're still in touch. And but also would pull in comics from the cellar. It was always such a strong lineup. And I noticed like once I got too busy and stopped doing that show, I noticed like, oh, like certain people are not as nice to me as they used to. And then slowly I started to be maybe a little bit more red pilled, maybe a little bit more. And then I was like, when I started becoming more vocal about like, yeah, like voting for Trump or doing a show with Compound Media or whatever, it was like a little bit at a time. I noticed like more and more people kind of cutting off, and then eventually like full on I'd see them talking shit on Twitter. I'm like, these are all people I was like nice to generally, like giving them spots. And I just got the feeling that, I don't know, I don't know if it was jealousy, or I remember at one point I made this joke. It was on Twitter. There was like this little video of a parrot just barking. And I was like, oh, look, this parrot is transitioning. It was the dumbest, like not even a clever joke. But the response I got was like, oh, Chrissy, she sucks. She's a whack ally. That's like the worst thing you could be called, is like a bad ally or a non-ally or something. And it amazed me how like for 6 years I was all about I thought, lifting up LGBT voices and stand up, actively scouting out new people, putting my own money into advertising. And then like the second I send out a tweet that someone doesn't like, or I was like actively, people were trying to like cancel me, like cancel the show, like calling, I know like these other like couple of like gay comics would be calling the Stonewall Inn, like trying to get that show canceled. And I was like, I wonder if it's because I didn't book these particular individuals or what, but man, it's like, it's crazy to me. And just literally the other day, this girl talking shit about me on Twitter, and I'm like, I booked you constantly for years. And
Yeah,
it's
well, if
like,
you vote for Donald Trump, you automatically hate gay people and you want trans people to have no rights. That's what the narrative is as far as the community goes. And also, you have to tiptoe around trans people constantly, which I have so many trans friends, and that's not the relationship I've had with any of my trans friends.
wow.
So I don't know why I'm expected to tiptoe around trans strangers that only exist online as far as I'm concerned.
Right. These are not, and obviously your trans friends would be the first to tell you, like, hey, like, don't make these certain mistakes. Like, I've only had like maybe 2 trans friends in my life, and like not like super close or anything. But yeah, it's kind of odd. And you have a lot of really funny like trans jokes. Like I was dying laughing like just before we started recording, and you're just toying with this idea of like, okay, you want us to call you the gender that you identify with in your brain, but that you don't look it. Like, how are we supposed to know? And it's the kind of joke that like is always going to kill in a room, because you're pointing out the obvious in such a funny way. It's like, yeah, if you don't look like it, like, what do you want us to do? Like, we're
Yeah,
not bad people.
yeah, well, that's the problem is sometimes it's just an honest mistake and people don't want to accept this because they'd rather call you transphobic than just accept that they're not good at what they're trying to do. Like, get better. Just, work on it a little. And then maybe if we had a clue, then you could get mad at us. But when we don't know, we don't know, and that's how people learn. So,
Yeah. And I would say like most people don't even know one trans person. Like I'm in entertainment in New York City, and I've only been friends with a couple. So it's like I imagine most of the country, like they maybe have not even met a trans person, or they're definitely not friends with one. And it's I just feel like the wokesters are so quick to jump down your throat and then like also deem you a terrible person.
yeah, and they're doing a disservice to the community, especially the trans community. Even trans activists are doing a disservice to the trans community because they make such a big deal of things that the everyday trans person doesn't care about and wouldn't be offended by. And that makes people think that the trans community in general is just constantly offended when it's not the case.
Do you get a lot like, oh, you can't speak on this at all because you yourself are not trans?
Oh, yeah, I had there was a gay magazine, it's an online magazine here in Las Vegas, that was trying to get me fired off of one of the few gigs that I was able to do during the actual shutdown. They had us at we were doing basically a drive-in show. And I did this joke that, involves trans people, and somebody recorded it. The worst part about that was the person that recorded it was part of the crew.
Oh,
Yeah, they're actually
they should
working
know
thing.
better. Jesus. Wow.
Yeah, they made a huge headache for the venue and for the organizers, and they wanted me pulled off the show. And they somehow brought in the fact that it was Juneteenth when I did the joke. And it was like, that has nothing to do with the trans community. I don't even
Isn't that
know.
like kind of a black day? Isn't that like that something has to do with slavery or something?
Yeah, it's the day of emancipation, and it has nothing to do with trans or LGBT at all.
Boy.
But that's what it turned into, is like, this guy had the nerve on the day of emancipation. And I was like, that has nothing to do with anything.
During Pride Month, the nerve. How dare. How dare
Yeah,
you?
so I turned it around on them and I was like, okay, well, let's go with that. I was like, you on Juneteenth are actually questioning a brown person being able to speak their mind. You as a white person are doing this. And so
Yeah.
turned it around, because that's what I do with every time they do that to me. I just turn it around on them and I'm like, okay, if we're playing victim mentality, then let me play the couple of cards that I have. I'm gay, I'm Mexican.
Good for you. And it's like that. I feel like that shuts people up most of the time because they don't.
Yeah. And I'd be willing to argue any of these things on their merits with these people. But if we're going to go straight up victim mentality, then I'll go victim mentality too. And we can just see how that plays out.
Yeah. You're like, I've got cards to play.
Exactly. I like, and then also a lot of people, because they weren't really prepared because once they got on my nerves, what I did was I let because it happened on Facebook. And so I let
Hmm.
my entire Facebook friends and family know about it. And then they just started getting flooded with just people being like, Ty Rivera is an openly gay comedian that does these shows, this shows. And it was gay people, it was straight people, it was black people, Mexican, white, and they just got flooded and they weren't really ready for it. So they ended up backing off. And what they did was they asked the venue if they could just get me to not tell those jokes, like in my next set.
Wow.
Yeah, so I agreed to that. And then I just put those jokes at the end of my set.
Yeah. What are they going to do? Yeah. Shut the lights off. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I said. And I mean, like, and I was headlining the show. And that's one thing, like, I've been doing comedy for so long and I've done it in so many awkward circumstances and redneck clubs and everything else that they had me closing those shows because the other comedians that were on the shows, nothing against them, were either bailing early or not doing well because, you're performing for honking cars, basically.
Yeah. Oh man, like I remember there were some of those shows in New York, like in Astoria, as like the diner show. I think I was supposed to do it once and it got rescheduled. But like, yeah, like all you can do is honk. Like that's how you laugh is like by honking your car. And I was like, that is a challenge. That's so hard. And like, how do you even do crowd work? Like, oh, who's in this Honda? You know? Just like, oh, white car. Wow, you have white car privilege. Like I just have no idea.
Yeah, honking cars, flashing the high beams. Those are your applause breaks in those shows.
I didn't even know about Juneteenth until I swear like a couple years ago when it started showing up in my Google calendar. I'd be like, "Oh, now this is in my Google calendar. I guess I'll like I don't remember growing up hearing about Juneteenth."
There was more of a Texas thing. I mean, like I had heard about it when I was a kid, but it wasn't a big thing or celebrated in any way. But then I'm from Arizona, which, we were the last to actually recognize Martin Luther King Day. So Arizona's always been kind of lagging on that stuff. But
Yeah.
I remember hearing about it when I was a kid, but it's only in the last 2 years maybe that people have started really recognizing it.
What kind of rooms like when you were coming up and like getting up in Arizona, like what were you able to get up at real clubs or were they more like bar shows?
Well, I started in Arizona and was doing stand up there for about 4 months. And then I moved to LA. And in Arizona, there was very little to do. There was like Tempe Improv had an open mic. And outside of that, I would perform at this like rock club that was called The Sets. And I was doing those shows, not realizing they were bringers because,
Okay.
you're just starting
I've
out and
done
they're like,
so many bringers, please. Like I lived on bringers for like at least 2 years. So
yeah, I didn't know what they were. They were just like, invite your friends and, you're going to be in this contest and everybody will vote at the end. And so like I was doing it and didn't realize until afterwards. But then when I went to LA, that was doing a lot of bar shows, a lot of coffee shops, a lot of performing for nobody and other comedians,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, like so yeah, really similar to New York. And I think those shows where there are like 2 to 5 people in the audience, like that, I don't know, that builds character. Like if you can't make just two random people laugh, like you should be able to do that at least once to
Oh
build
yeah,
the
and it
muscle.
helps you on the road. because sometimes when you're on the road, I remember one time I was performing in Washington, and it was this gig at I don't even remember the name of the casino, in some small town in Washington. And I get there, we had driven straight in because we got there late. I did my hair in the sink in like the bathroom. And then I run out on stage expecting to do this show, and it's exactly two people in the audience. Two people, Steve and Sonia were their names, and they were on a Match.com date.
Oh my gosh, that's precious. Wow.
Yeah, but so I mean, like, then it came in handy that I was used to performing for nobody. I was like, okay, well, this isn't that far off what I
Yeah.
usually do in LA.
And then you can definitely make jokes like, wow, like this wasn't even worth the hair gel I put in for this.
And it wasn't, I mean, like, it was just like, but Steve and Sonia were nice enough, but, and then I also made a joke about coming out to them was like coming out to my parents again, because it's just two disappointed people sitting at a table across from me.
You're like, I am feeling the same feeling. I like that you're not precious around the word tranny, and you kind of I've noticed in a few of your sets, like you're just yeah, you kind of throw it around and you have fun with it. And I guess I know you've gotten shit for it. I think you've gotten trolled a bunch by I guess like the woke trans community. You said like someone kind of tagged like a more popular, I think like trans blogger or somebody.
Yeah.
Um, how did you deal with like the trolling? How long did it last?
That probably lasted only like 2 or 3 days, but it was an intense 2 or 3 days where I was just getting blown up. And at that time, I was still getting notifications on my phone. Now I
Oof.
don't. Yeah, now I don't get push notifications anymore on anything, but well, Twitter, because it's fun for me. I don't get in arguments on Twitter for some reason. But yeah, and well, also with me and the word tranny, I've had so many trans friends, and it just used to be a descriptive word. My trans friends would ask me, like, I'd say I was hanging out with the group, and I'd mention a girl's name, and my best friend, a woman named Coco, a trans woman named Coco, just would ask me. She would be like, "Oh, that person, was that a real girl or a tranny?" And I just answer real girl or tranny, and we'd move on. So when it became like this big deal, I was like, yeah, that word is not that big a deal. You usually don't call somebody a tranny, especially like somebody you're, just getting to know or whatever. But like just using the word tranny isn't a particularly bad thing. And so I just handled it that way when people were hitting me up about it. I was like, yeah, I don't really care. I'm not going to make that the center of my life. And then there were points where I didn't handle it the best, like there was after the second day, I started to get pretty short with everybody, and I admit I went hard at some people. But
Yeah. It gets to you. It gets to you. Was that the only thing you were like trolled or people tried to like sort of cancel you over?
oh no, people have tried to cancel me several times, just being Mexican and voting for Trump. And I had performed what was that? Was that I don't remember what year it was, but it was right around, probably it was like 2014. I performed for the Congressional Hispanic Caucus.
Oh, sounds sexy.
Yeah,
Caucus.
yeah, I know. Yeah, they were great and they were fun, but I went at them exactly the way that I go at audiences. I didn't treat them like they were anything special and
Good.
members of Congress, so they had a lot of fun with it, and it was a great set and stuff like that. Well, you go to like mixers and stuff like that afterwards, or their gala, which we were invited to the next night, and I met different people. And then when I had posted something about Trump on Facebook, then that turned into a thing where some of the people that had attended were like, well, we're gonna make sure you never get to do that again. And it's like, yeah, I don't know if you
Whoa.
saw me, but I don't care if I perform for them again.
Who? Like anybody kind of high profile? Like anybody?
Yeah, I guess the caucus again, they were going to contact the people that handled that, which I've seen those people since then. And really, that was a fun experience. But for me, it was a one-time experience. It wasn't like I was planning on continuing to perform for them. I knew that they weren't going to like that I was voting for Trump. But if I remember correctly, it was like Trump had already declared his candidacy, if I remember correctly, because I know I did at least one or two Trump jokes during that set. And nobody was mad at me for doing it. So I don't
Hmm.
know why it turned into a thing later on.
Do you have any other examples of times that maybe you were booked for a show and they were expecting, well, they hear that you're gay and Mexican, or even that just that you're gay, and they're expecting one performance from you, and then they hear you, and like, has it ever happened like they were like upset or like felt like wronged or?
Oh, Harvey's in San Francisco, which would probably be the equivalent to the Stonewall.
Oh yeah. Oh wow.
It's right in the Castro, and it's named after Harvey Milk. And
Wow,
so
yeah.
I've done really well there since then, but there was one particular night where I just was performing as far as I go, and somebody got offended, and then that turned into like at least 80% of the room walked out.
Oh God.
Yeah, and
Wow.
it was packed, and they just started like filing out literally during my set, and I was newer, not new, but newer. And I wasn't used to that because everything had been going really well. I mean, I had bombed before or whatever, but like this was all material that was I had always done well. And these people got offended. And yeah, that one was a whole thing. They ended up having me back, but
Oh, that's good.
it took a minute for them to recover.
Yeah, I can probably imagine there's probably part of you that felt a little bit like maybe panicky, like, oh, these are supposed to be my people. Like, wow, I feel like kind of abandoned and this is kind of shitty. I wonder if you had this feeling of like, am I gonna make it? Or if you weren't on the newer side, maybe you were feeling like, God, is this like, am I on the right path here?
Yeah, well, that's definitely where I decided to just not really pay attention to the gay community, because that was a mistake I made with them. Was I made the mistake of thinking because they're gay and I'm gay, I should be able to just be as free as I want to because they should just get it. And instead, they got offended. So,
Hmm.
like, then at that point, I was just like, yeah, I don't care about the gay community as far as stand up goes. Well, I like gay people, I like gay individuals. But as far as the gay community goes, I don't, I have no connection with that.
Yeah, as I'm just smiling because my dog is like she's about to bark because I'm not paying attention to her. It's so interesting what you're saying. Reminds me exactly of what I would have Tim Dillon before he blew up so huge, but like he would do my show like whenever he could, and he would say like, yeah, he's like, doing this room is like one of my least favorite rooms to do. He's like, I do not like performing for other like gay people. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
gay
Look at
people are the
this. Look
worst.
at this. Look at this. She's so bold.
Yeah, she's outright just like, you're gonna touch me. I don't care. You touch me now.
She's like, please deal with me. I don't mind. It's like she just tends to kick out my internet cord, and then the whole thing gets fucked for about 60 seconds. But that's so funny. Like, I couldn't believe it. I thought, like, oh man, like at first I'm like, oh Tim, you're gonna love this. Everyone here, this is Stonewall, and he'd be like, this is my least. And it would openly say that to the crowd too. He's like, you're my least favorite people to perform for. Um,
Yeah, Tim's
yeah,
somebody that's been very cool with me. I love
yeah, of
Tim.
course, yeah, because he kind of just like he's like the real deal, and um he's not someone who's gonna like kiss up or anything or be fake or do you feel like it's harder to come out as gay or conservative
Um, well,
or like a Trump voter? I don't know if you like call yourself conservative, but
no,
yeah,
I don't identify as anything specifically, but yeah,
yeah,
definitely a Trump supporter. And I would say that probably, I definitely got more blowback from coming out as a Trump supporter, for
wow,
sure. Yeah, well, because, it was the same as what you described. It was like people where it's like, I was always nice to you. I was always protective of you because I had a really good reputation and still do have a really good reputation on the LA comedy scene. And so, like, a lot of the wokies that got mad at me were people that when they first came on the scene, they were maybe worried that they were going to get bullied. And so I would
mm,
always like make sure that I was extra, like open about the fact that I supported them, have them sit next to me, or I'd go sit next to them, or I'd hug them as soon as I
Wow.
walked in the room. And
Wow.
so they would like, because when I first started, I knew what that was like to be, because when I moved to LA, it was normal for people to be homophobic there too at that time.
Really? And this was like what, 2003 you said, or
Yeah,
2000?
2003.
Still, I mean, you would think like, yeah, we're in the 2000s. That shouldn't really be a thing anymore. But wow.
Yeah, and so people were really shitty with me. So then when and like I was the first comic in LA, the first like gay comedian in LA to be doing all of the rooms and all of the shows, because I just my thing was I wasn't trying to make any kind of statement. I had stage fright. And so I
Mm.
needed to get rid of that. So I went to everything that I could possibly go to. Well, when you do that, a certain amount of people, and when you're funny on top of it, a certain amount of people will just start respecting you and treating you well and that kind of thing. So that happened. And then when other gay comedians or LGBT comedians in general started coming around, I would notice them and see, like, that they were kind of in danger of going through the same thing I went through. And so I would try to help them out. And in a lot of cases, I did help them out. And then they all turned on me once.
Oh my God, this is like the same thing. Yeah, like I would see like younger comics coming up, and of course I was like booking that show, so I was like extra looking out for them because I know this is like maybe a hard, I don't know, space to be in. It's like you keep hearing, oh, there's so many straight white males and they're keeping us down, and I was like, okay, great. Well, here's a space for you guys, and I'm trying to grow this and make this just a good show, not even just a good like gay show. This is just a good show. And so it's particularly like you're like, damn, and fast forward a few years and it's like you watch these people talk shit on Twitter and it's like, ugh, I don't know.
Yeah, and the most frustrating part is it's like you hate me and you have an opinion on me, but when it comes down to it, you're still not funny and you're still not good. So I don't know why you even have an opinion about anything. Like you
Yeah.
should be working on your act is what you should be doing. You shouldn't be worried about arguing on Facebook or Twitter.
Yeah. And it sucks. And like, of course, as the person who's doing better, like you or I, it's like if we were to go, oh, you're jealous, it's because I'm so great. Of course, you like it sounds bad to say that, but then you look at the person and you're like, yeah, they haven't done anything in a year. Just still using COVID as an excuse. And like if you haven't done anything, you know what I mean? Like no pods, no secret shows, no like whatever, no like shows in a parking lot, it's like, okay, then you're kind of using it's been interesting to see the people that are like really milking the COVID as an excuse.
Yeah, well, even that was killing me. Like the people that were not only milking it and staying home on their own, which if you want to stay home, stay home, but the people that were calling, like, trying to snitch on people for doing shows, it's like, yeah, why do you care what other people are doing? Do what's best for you and leave everybody else alone.
The snitching is wild. Like there's so much snitching in the New York City community. And it's either comics that are like unfortunately like yeah, they're on the woke side and they're not so busy, or it's like a couple of these like, comedy critics that are and you look into them and they're failed comics. They're like comics who made a go for it and they sucked and so now they criticize, typically from just out of state and it's like once you look into who these people are, you're like, oh, of course. All right. It's because they're salty and they're jealous.
Yeah, you're a hater. You're not
Yeah.
you're not a critic, you're a hater is what
Yeah.
you are.
You're not Siskel and Ebert. You're just a salty bitch. You're just a hater. Can you remember anybody who, when you were new, like, helped you out, like whether they were clubs or like independent, sort of like venues or bookers? Like, does anybody stand out as like, oh wow, this person like was really solid to me?
Jamie Masada, the owner of the Laugh Factory. When I first got to LA, well, I wasn't even living there yet. I did an open mic at the Laugh Factory, and it was just when I went to check it out. And I was so new. It was maybe my third or fourth time on stage, and I knew the Laugh Factory was a famous club, but I just knew it was an open mic, and I was like, oh, I'll go do this. And I hadn't realized that at that time Jamie would watch the entire open mic and he would sit in the corner. And so,
Whoa.
yeah, after you do, and the way that it worked back then, now it doesn't work that way anymore, but the way it worked back then was right after you'd go up and Jamie would critique you.
Oh man, that never happened with a club. Like that always would happen in New York with like, yeah, the person who ran the mic, or yeah, maybe somebody else. Like if you did a bringer, maybe then you would get to have like club owner critique. Wow, though.
Yeah, and some people he would give them quick critiques and just basically, kind of tell them to start over or whatever. With
Go back
me,
home, move home. Wherever you're
yeah,
from,
nobody
go there.
nobody cares. You're not you don't got it, kid. I'm sure he did plenty of those because some people really hated him. But with me, he right away he was like, I can tell you're new, but you're a really good writer. And he was like, do you live in LA? And I said no. And then he said, when do you plan to move here? And I was like,
Ooh,
in the next couple of months. And then he was like, move here as soon as you can, stage time, stage time, stage time, come back and see
wow.
me. So I came. So then I ended up like I didn't go back for quite a while. When I did go back, though, he kept me showcasing for 2 years, but he always gave me very detailed notes. And
That's
then
great.
he passed me as a regular. But Jamie really had a lot to do with like shaping me in the beginning.
That's great. Wow. Like I remember an early note I got from maybe Eric Hansen at Broadway, and he was like, "Oh, do vlogging." Like that's how old. I feel like I've been doing it so long, even though people were saying, "Oh yeah, you should start a vlog," and I just like didn't. It's weird. I had internet stage fright. Like I was very comfortable being on stage, but it's like it took this pandemic for me to like really get into podcasting because I don't know. It's
What
weird.
year did you start?
I started in 2010. It was like March of 2010. I was 26. I had just come from improv, so I wanted something more like autonomous. I had just done a one woman show, so it's like I had some discipline, but I was still, it took me a couple years where I was just doing like one mic a week and like I would do a bringer every couple of months just to get that good tape to submit to some festival or some other show. And like, yeah, I like the bringers because you would get notes. And those two people that ran that mic at New York Comedy Club were really supportive, and they felt kind of just like a comedy, like aunt and uncle. And I was just like, oh, and I definitely got enough good feedback, like, okay, you're good. Like I felt like I was funny. I like enjoyed it. But it wasn't until the last few years when I like maybe the last 5 years that I really turned up the juice and like started working harder and having goals and stuff and like listening back to sets. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like a journey.
Yeah, Jamie Masada would be one that stands out for me. And then there was a comedian. He's still around. He's just in LA. I think he's starting a club in Florida, though. Mike Miratori is his name.
Okay, I haven't heard of him.
He's, a maniac. He's really, he's really cool. But like his on stage, well, even off stage, he's just kind of, he's crazy. He's really cool, though. And a lot of comics like him. But yeah, he really helped me out and got me put on a lot of different shows. He helped out like on the, just like the getting on stuff.
That's great. It's so like it's important when you can, especially when you can be that for somebody else, like kind of help, connect people or get people opportunities. But it's like you always remember the people that kind of were there for you in the beginning. What kind of rooms do you find like you like the best performing in now? Because it seems like you do a lot of road work. You've been all over. You were the first openly gay comedian to perform in Mongolia. How
Yeah,
did that
that's
happen?
I performed in China for the 3 years leading up to COVID.
Oh
And
wow.
so, yeah, each time I go to China, they put me in more cities. And on the last trip, they suggested Mongolia. And I was like, yeah, I'll go to Mongolia. So, I flew out to Mongolia. I don't remember how long the flight was. I remember it was after a long night performing in Shanghai. But yeah, Mongolia was actually really great. Technically, I could have been arrested for doing my act there because if you talk about sex in a public space, that's considered like, I guess that's against their laws or something.
Whoa.
Yeah, but the US ambassador to Mongolia was there and he really liked my stuff. And so did, I was doing crowd work with what I didn't realize was his secretary.
Oh my God. Whoa.
Yeah, and so it was really great. And then they took me to the big Genghis Khan memorial that they have out there, which is like this huge statue that's on top of a building. And I was only there for maybe 24 hours, and then I flew back out, and I had to do Beijing that next day.
Wow. How did you get to touring in China?
By accident. Joe Mackey was originally
Oh, I love
supposed to do it.
Joe. Wow.
Yeah, he was originally supposed to do it, and then he ended up dropping out last minute. And I had a friend who knew them, and they were like, can you make it out here? And it was the kind of thing where I had to run and get my visa right away. Like I had to do it within like 24 hours, get my
Oh,
visa. And
holy
then like
shit. Wow.
2 days later, I was flying out to Shanghai.
Oh my God. Was it 3 years all at once, or was the first chunk
Oh
less
no,
time?
it was just like each time I go, it's like, just I meant 3 years where I would go out for a week each time or a couple
Wow.
days each time,
Would there be translators there at all? And if that's a dumb question, just tell
No,
me.
you're performing for expats mostly.
Hmm.
There's a lot of expats that are living in China. And then also like that's one of the things, one of the reasons that you have to be used to everything in order to do those gigs, because a lot of times the locals, the actual Chinese, don't respect it because you're speaking in English. And so they will at points be disrespectful, just in like trying to talk over you, or
Whoa.
that kind of thing. But
So they'll come to the show, an English speaking comedy show, just to heckle you like absently in Chinese.
yeah, they'll
Mhm.
just figure like, well, we'll just pretend like it's not happening because it's not our thing.
Wow.
But I'm pretty good at yelling at people no matter who it is. So like, the bookers love having me out there because I will yell at people, and I'll also
Good for
remind
you.
them, because some of them like will think that because they've got a lot of money that means something. And I always just remind them their money's shit. You know what I mean? Like their money's not worth anything. And I tell them that all the time. So like I completely take all of that away from them.
Good
And
for you. You're like, go eat a bat. Get out of here.
yeah, yeah. And the only things though is the three T's. You're warned about that. Um, Tiananmen, Tibet, and Taiwan. Those three things you cannot mention when you're on stage. If you do, you will be
Really?
pulled. Yeah, it's illegal. You will be pulled.
Whoa. I feel like I should know why. I mean, like Tiananmen Square.
Yeah,
That was
yeah, that whole
okay.
massacre.
Okay, okay, that's a massacre. Taiwan. Why Taiwan?
Because Taiwan is still considered China. So when like, and they have the saying, the Chinese government has the saying one China. So when you differentiate, you're basically reinforcing the fact that those two are separate, and that's not supposed to be like that. So you just don't mention Taiwan.
So they're kind of racist, pretty much.
It's not even that. It's like, it's like if the only way I could really explain it, how Texas claims to be its own thing in certain ways, and it
Hmm.
kind of is. It's
Yeah.
like if you were to treat Texas as a separate country, and the United States really had a problem with that.
Okay, so like nationalistic to just one state, kind of.
Yeah, and so it's just like, yeah, well, why would you address just Texas or make it seem like Texas is its own country when it's not, but
Oh, wow. Okay.
nobody in our country would make a big thing of that, but China has different rules than we do.
Okay, interesting. So, and what's the other T?
Tibet.
Oh,
And
Tibet.
that's, all the stuff with the monks and free Tibet and that whole thing. But I was talking to a Chinese local, and they were saying that, people paint it to seem like the monks were like just these humble people and stuff like that. But you even see this yourself if you go to like the temples and that kind of thing. The monks live like kings. So what happened
Really?
was,
Yeah, I was picturing just like robes and carrot sticks. I don't know.
yeah,
Simple life.
that's what it looks like. They drive Maseratis. People leave
Oh,
money.
shit.
Yeah, people leave money all over because, it's like considered good luck to leave money in different
Right.
spots. Well, the money just collects and collects. So eventually they come in and take the money, and something has to happen with that money. God's not going to use it, or, you know what I mean? Buddha doesn't need it.
Yeah.
So that they spend it, you know, and that's what it was. That's the other side to it. I know it's more complex than that, but the other side was some people aren't necessarily the most sympathetic because they were like, yeah, well, the monks were kind of becoming their own thing where they were getting a little too much power.
Taking the collection plate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting. So you wouldn't even hint, like nobody was even hinting at any of those things.
No, and it's not like the United States where it's like I'm going to be naughty and just say this. You'll get pulled from the stage. It's just they're not, because you know you'll get shut down.
Wow. Huh. And it's like it's interesting because it's like now there's this free speech kind of struggle here in the US, and it's like, but you know what, hearing that story from what it's like in China, it's like, okay, yeah, it could definitely get way worse.
Yeah, well, you know, that's why when people talk about communism or anything like it in the United States, I always just feel like go see what that actually feels like. Go see how that actually plays out. You know, and also when you're in a place like China, um, if people were to try to pull the being woke, politically correct thing, that just wouldn't work.
Hmm. Do you feel like the US is moving towards communism?
I think some people are trying to make it that way, but I don't think it will. I don't think it's like, I don't think that's a real concern because um, nobody would like what that would actually be like. The
What and
reality of that.
what are the big realities of that like if you started to see in the US, you'd be like, "Oh shit."
Well, for me, none of it would be a problem because I don't care about a lot of things. You know, like
Yeah.
I do my thing and I'm gonna do what I want to do anyway. But like the people that, you know, protest in the street, like even the George Floyd thing, like that would never happen in a communist country.
You would not be allowed to, right, First Amendment, you wouldn't be allowed to protest anything.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to just protest in the streets and decide, you know, oh, this is what I'm going to make the government do. You're not going to make the government do anything. You're going to go back in your house is what you're going to do. You
Hmm.
know, and people, they were telling me about when they had the Olympics in Beijing. The thing was, a lot of the African the African people that were living there on visas were known for dealing drugs in Beijing. And so they decided that it was all the black people that were doing that. That's what the Chinese government decided. And they just went to the downtown area and they just started rounding up all of the black people. And it didn't matter what their status was. There was one person that was the son of a diplomat. He got beat up, and then they told him to leave the country. And that was the thing because, you know, technically they couldn't keep him because he was the son of a diplomat and they couldn't do the same things they would do to others. And so the thing with him was it's like, you just have to leave. You have to get out of here.
Whoa. And I heard even like to this day, the Chinese are kind of super anti-black people. Like they wouldn't serve like maybe I was seeing some videos like during like the,
COVID.
the COVID stuff where they were just like would not serve, like would not let a black person like come into the store.
Yeah, black people got kicked out of their apartments, the places that they were living. And that was an actual thing that was happening. That wasn't just, you know, propaganda or the news making it seem like a bigger. Actually, that's most things we hear about here from China are actually worse than what you actually hear because they
Oof.
keep so much
Wow.
from getting out. So, like, what we hear is very minute.
Like I remember the clips of people being like torn physically from their apartments. Like that was very scary.
Yeah, and that happens, like stuff like that happens on a huge scale there. When something happens, it just happens. But that's also the reason that some Americans like living in China. That's one thing that
Hmm.
people have said because, you know, they like one guy, he was an expat and had been living in China for over 20 years. And he was like, yeah, there's certain things that I miss about the United States, but one thing I don't miss, one thing that I like about China is that if there's a problem here, like when there was, you know, because they're still working on the pollution over there. But he was like, when we were originally having the worst part of that problem, what happens is somebody in the government decides that this is what's going to happen. This switch gets shut off, that thing gets shut off, and then, you know, we already are starting to work on the problem. We don't have to worry about people fighting in the government about what's
Hmm.
going to happen.
Okay, interesting. Wow, I've never heard that side of it, that there's people who actually like how things are done over there. You
Yeah,
always hear
because,
like how horrible it is.
you know, well, here on the other side, you know, you have like Nancy Pelosi and, you know, whoever else, so Ted Cruz arguing all the time or stuff like that. So if you completely cut that out and just,
Hmm.
you know, I mean, like for me, that's not necessarily a solution, but for some people, you know, they're like, yeah, get rid of them.
Yeah, and do you feel like there's less, like, it seems like our political figures, like, right, like Nancy Pelosi, they're their own kind of like, I don't know, brand or tabloid, you know, like they're a thing, and it seems to me like maybe in China it would be less like regular people don't even know who's in charge, or like they're just don't call attention to themselves as much.
Yeah, it's like there are the people that you see, you know, and I wouldn't even be able to name names, but like there are the people that you see regularly on their news, and you're like, oh, those people are must be important, but they're not treated with any kind of celebrity like here, you know. Like if you saw even yesterday, the different pictures that they put out with Nancy Pelosi right after they had signed the bill, or you know, like it was just like, well, what's this? Like it looks
Yeah, what
like,
was she wearing after after the bill came out? Like, who
yeah, and it
cares?
looked like a
Yeah.
movie poster, you know. It was like her walking in the halls and looking like a badass. And it's like, what are we doing here? Like, why do we make these
Ugh.
people into celebrities? Just do your
Yeah, it's
jobs.
so gross. Like I am so particularly sick of her, but like
Me too.
it's kind of all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, Nancy Pelosi, there is something especially dislikable about her. I don't know why it's so unlikable about her, but I really don't like her.
She's like an alien creature, I think. I think she's just like not human. I don't know. She's a lizard. I don't know. I
She's one of the
love
lizard people.
I love your I love your joke about calling immigration. Like, I'll call immigration to free up and dryer at the laundromat. I died. I died. It's so funny. Like, it's so, your jokes are just like so, like, honest and strong. Right. Like that guy said, you are like a really strong writer. And, like, I feel like once you have that, it's kind of like you're much harder to fuck with.
Yeah, and Mexicans are really fun. You know, like that's one group that, like, you know, like that Hispanic caucus, that group, which is like, I don't know. I don't even consider them really to be my people that way. You know, once people get into politics, especially Mexicans or Latinos, for some reason they change. But like, you
Yeah.
know,
Why is that? Do you, they feel like they have to be like polished and a different person?
yeah, and if you're like, you know, it's not politically correct to say this, but if you're Latino, we just say like, you know, you think you're white. Like that's what it is.
Hmm.
We're just like, you're trying to be white because that's not what we do. Like, you know, even when it came to Donald Trump, a lot of Mexicans, like Mexicans, well, a fair amount of Mexicans voted for Donald Trump. That's one thing a lot of people don't like to talk about.
Hmm.
And the other thing is, like the people that didn't vote for him were just like, oh yeah, that's just a different opinion, or he's just got a different approach, but they weren't nearly as offended as people were for them. That was what
Hmm.
was really frustrating for me, being like Mexican American and knowing so many of my own people. It's like, you know, people would try to tell me what Mexicans felt, and I'd be like, no, that's not what Mexicans feel. So I don't know why you're trying to put this on me, like you know more about my culture than I do.
That has to be so infuriating. Like, I'm actually Mexican. My family's Mexican. I have Mexican friends. Why do you think that is? Like, there is, I guess, with the Mexican community, like the people that are like, I'm going to be offended for this group.
Yeah, well, you know, it's just that God complex type thing that white liberals tend to have. And it is white liberals that tend to have that. Because I can disagree with my white conservative friends, and we'll get into it. We'll have a little bit of a debate or whatever. And then eventually we just leave it alone and we're still friends. With white liberals, not only do they think they're supposed to give me my opinion and tell me what it is I'm supposed to feel, but also at the end, we can't even be friends. We're not even going to continue to have any kind of dialogue. It's just like, yeah, you don't exist anymore. So it's like, do you really stand up for brown people, or do you only stand up for brown people that have the same opinion that you do?
Right. And then you get to feel like in charge and powerful, and that you're like, I don't know, the freaking babysitter or something. You're like, you're the hall monitor for everybody. You get to, I don't know,
Yeah, because
teacher's
I
pet
mean,
or
like,
something.
most of us are too stupid to think for ourselves. That's the way some people see brown people. It's just like, okay, well, and that's why I tweeted this thing that was actually, kind of on the popular side, where I tweeted that the only something like the only white people I trust are the racist ones. you know
That's great.
yeah.
Yeah, I like, because conservatives, like, yeah, like we think that, like, I don't know, do I consider myself? I'm probably like classical liberal, whatever. I feel like conservatives genuinely feel like, you guys, we can disagree, but you guys can take care of yourselves. Like, you don't need us to do anything for you. It's kind of like almost like they have more respect for you. Like,
Yeah, and I don't know a single like other Latino that I deal with that's looking for white people to stand up for, or you know what I mean? Like, I don't even know who's really pushing the ally thing outside of the LGBT community, you know.
mhm.
But like, we don't have that being Mexican American. We're not always talking about like who's an ally and who's not an ally.
Right, right. It seems like, yeah, you don't hear about like black allies. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just like, it's somebody's cooler, they're not.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, I just wish that this like obsession with like the group, like the identity politics, I hope that that starts to dissolve a little bit. Yeah. It's like this sort of like Twitter fight with this girl that I was like booking for years, and now she's like talking shit. Like, it's also, she's part of this very confused group of people who think like anybody who was in DC on January 6th is part of the insurrection. It's like, no, I was there doing interviews, like hanging out, but it's like that when you're consuming too much mainstream media, like you're confused on facts like that. And what was the point? Oh, what was the point? Oh, why am I bringing her up? I can't remember.
We were
Damn it.
talking
Oh,
about allies and
um,
identity politics.
yeah, no, yeah. Oh, yeah. She said like, "How dare you? I can't believe that you even set foot on stage at the Stonewall." Like, it's just so, it's just like a weird like this idea that the ally, being an ally, is so precious, and like, and I said no.
But
I'm like, I'm like, she's like, oh, it's because I'm. And then of course my fans were coming out, right, and defending me. And then she mentioned, she's like, I'm queer, I'm this, I'm this. She's like mentioning, I'm like, no, your titles don't matter. People just think you're a bad person. Like, that's
yeah.
what it comes down to. Your titles can't save you.
And also, when people claim like gay spots as sacred spaces, I'm like, do you know what happens in the bathrooms of every like,
Yes,
can we
yeah,
be serious for a minute? Can we stop acting like, how dare you? Oh, stuff has been worse than me
yeah.
setting foot on.
There have been shows where the microphone has smelled a little too funny for my. That's great.
Yeah.
I I love that you also said like, yeah, I'm part of the iChart community. Like it's just great. Like, and do you feel like there's certain things and certain jokes that you can get away with because you are like gay and Mexican that maybe other people can't get away with joking on stage?
Yeah, but I don't think it's because I'm gay and Mexican. I think it's because being gay and Mexican makes me say it like it's nothing, because it isn't. And the audience will feel you hesitate. And so I think most people hesitate.
Oh
So
wow.
that's more what stops them than the actual content.
It's like, right, the more confident you are, it's because you have the knowing. Like,
Yeah, and I don't care, because I know I'm not saying anything wrong. That's why I don't care, because it's like, I know I'm not saying anything wrong. I know I'm not doing anything wrong. Even when it comes to like trans, which I'm not a part of that group, and people always like try to remind me, and it's like, yeah, I know that I'm not trans, but I also know I'm not saying anything wrong. So just because you're triggered by, somebody talking about trans people in a way that doesn't pretend that they're super sensitive. All the trans people I know have been really tough, at least mentally tough. So when it comes to the things I say, and I tell people that all the time too, like, maybe you're too weak for my stand up, and I'm fine with that.
oh, yes, of course. Right. Why should you be the one to change? Like, you're the one like creating and delivering the art. It's like, you don't. we're not asking like, oh, let's redo this painting or redo this song. It's like just find something that you like. Like I think it is because of social media, because like we are such public figures. It's like, oh, the people think that makes us more accessible and like that we care so much about people pleasing, which I totally used to, but less so now. Yeah, that like they help. Oh, we got to steer this person in a way that we or adjust them so that we like them better. It's like it's ultimately so selfish because it's like, oh, you need to be what I like instead of just letting you be to find the people that like you as you are.
Yeah, and these people, I always tell people, you can't cancel what you never subscribe to.
That's
So
really good.
when these people try to cancel me or whatever, it's like, well, what are you really taking away from me? Because you never came to my shows. You technically didn't even hear about me till somebody retweeted something or shared something on Facebook. So it's not like you're taking away money. You weren't part of my audience. So if you're not part of my audience, you can't cancel me. It just doesn't work that way.
And your real fans would never do that. They would be like, no, like even if you say one thing that doesn't hit, they're not going to leave you. They're not going to like try to destroy you. They'll be like, oh, that
Yeah,
tweet
well,
didn't hit, or oh, yeah, oh, that joke didn't hit. Big deal.
that's why they like me, is because I do take chances. That's why most of the people that like what I do like me, is because they know that I will say some stuff that could go either way, and but you know how that goes. In a regular set, if you say one joke that doesn't go over, you just move on to the next one and you're fine again.
Yeah.
But in online life, you say one joke that doesn't go over and it's the end of your career. Suddenly, you're not supposed to talk anymore. And
Yeah, you got to go work at the bank now. You're done.
you've been deplatformed. And it's like, no, I haven't. You just got mad at me, and if it's too
Yeah.
much, I'll just block you. That's my
Mhm.
new thing. Like, if people get on my nerves, I just block them.
Yeah, I've become more comfortable with the block button. When I just see like repeated, like senseless trolling, I'm just like, okay, this is not a person that's open for a dialogue or conversation. They're just here to like be shitty. It's like, goodbye.
Yeah, and I just feel like you're not in a healthy place, and I'm
Yeah.
not going to let you take me to an unhealthy place with you. Like,
It's
I
like if
get
you
it.
were right. It's like if you were outside in the streets of New York City and a crazy mentally ill person came up to you and started screaming. It's like you would walk away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You wouldn't like stay there and be like, well, the right thing to do is to, discuss this. You're like, no, they're crazy. They're about to throw their own shit at you.
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
just get rid of them. It's like there's nothing productive that's going to come from this. Like, every once in a while it's cool to debate with people, and I like when people don't agree with me, just in the way that, like, it makes me really think about what it is I'm saying. So sometimes I don't mind that. If a person's logical, if they're somewhat
Yeah.
level-headed, I'm fine with it. But if you're really coming from an unhealthy place and you just want to like insult me and tell me that I shouldn't be able to work, and if you're going to jump on my website and start calling places I'm supposed to be performing, trying to get me
Oof.
fired, like, then yeah, I just have to block you, because what else am I going to do with that? And I'm not going to act like I'm in a customer service position and like, well, what can I do to make you happy? It's not up to me to make you happy. What can
Right.
you do to make you happy?
Yes, what can you do? And it's always these people that are not. It's so much easier to shit on somebody else, to destroy somebody else, than it is to like look within, try to fix yourself, bring yourself up, create something, work on yourself. Yeah, the calling up the venues and trying to get you, that's like kind of the lowest of the low. Are you hopeful for the future of comedy? I talked to some comedians who say, oh, comedy's over, comedy's dead, the woke people have ruined it. Are you feeling hopeful? Are you feeling like there's a new wave coming?
No, there's definitely it's good. There's definitely going to be a resurgence. We're on our way to it now. It just doesn't always feel like it, but it definitely is coming back. Audiences want that. Audiences want real stand-up. Audiences aren't looking for everybody to agree with them. Audiences want somebody that thinks a little bit different, that's going to make them laugh, that's going to show them a different side of life. And the online people, they don't exist in the comedy clubs. That's why you don't get those reactions when you're performing in a club. Like I said just a second ago, even if you say something the audience doesn't agree with, audiences are very forgiving. Now, if it was the same people that were living online, like, for me, a lot of the biggest mouths or the loudest mouths on social media don't even exist in regular life.
Hmm.
They only exist on social media, and that's because in real life, I don't know how many of those people you've actually met, but in LA we had, a few of them that would like had come out to the open mics a bit and been around a little bit and identified as comedians for a while. But they were such miserable people that it just didn't translate to real life.
They wouldn't
So
show that part of themselves, yeah, in real life.
yeah, and like, you know, when they were around, it was like because I would have that happen a lot where it would be like, wait a second, right now you're trying to cuss me out and talk down to me on social media, but I just saw you last night.
Wow.
And you either smiled at me or you didn't say anything to me or you pretended like you didn't see me. Like you're not the same person. So when you turn into that person in regular life, then you approach me and talk to me there. But online, I'm not dealing with you. We had one that was a trans comic that was really just a miserable person online and thought that the LA comedy community owed her basically to support her indefinitely, just because she was trans.
Wow.
And
You don't have to
eventually
be
everybody,
funny. Yeah.
yeah, and eventually everybody got tired of her. Like eventually that just burnt itself out and she's not even around anymore. I don't know what happened, you know, that like they had a fundraiser and raised on GoFundMe. This was like, you know, 2016 probably. They raised $7,000 for her to buy this. She didn't have a place to live.
Wow.
And they raised $7,000 to buy her this RV that she wanted to live in.
Wow.
Yeah, so she gets the RV and then she complains because she didn't have it checked out before she bought it and it had some electrical problems and stuff like that. So then she was mad at the LA
Oh my
comedy
God.
community because she picked out a shitty RV.
You got an RV for free. Come on. Yeah.
Yeah, then she let it get repossessed. Or not repossessed. She let it get towed,
Boy.
impounded, because you know it was bought in cash, but she let it get towed, impounded, and then never bothered to get it again because she was like, it's not worth anything anyway. And because she didn't work for it,
She
what
didn't
did she
appreciate
care?
it.
Yeah, what does she care? It's
Wow.
just gone. So, you know, people got tired of her, and that's not a thing anymore.
I would go back to the impound lot. Like, let me get a hubcap or something. Like, you know, I
Yeah.
think, can we get the rear view mirror? That's wild. That's, yeah. I think that's good. That's what's good about like, all right, sometimes the comedy community does prevail. And if you are just genuinely a shitty person, like people will find out eventually. And I agree with you. I'm hopeful. The audiences that I've seen in the last couple months, like give me so much hope because they are hungrier than they were like pre-pandemic. You know, it's like they're appreciative and they're invested, right? Like what you said before. If they don't like a joke, it's like, yeah, guess what? They've got a drink in front of them. That will tide them over until they hear something else that they like.
Yeah, but also that's how the pandemic, in my opinion, or the shutdowns we've been through are really going to help us out as comics that actually do have an interest in making people laugh. Is a lot of the stuff that people used to put up with because they were being polite, I don't think they're going to put up with anymore because it's like now I want to go out and see somebody that's actually going to make me laugh. I don't want to just agree with you because people are thinking more about what they're spending money on now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Why do you, and I don't know, maybe we have covered this already, but why do you think like the crazy libs or the LGBT folks are like so obsessed with labels? It feels like.
Well, that is backfiring too. Have you heard of the super straight movement?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that just happened the other day. And like, you know, suddenly they're not liking the labels so much now that, you know, other
I'm
people are
super
using them.
straight.
Yeah, they're the super straight people. But, you know, I think that that's the reason because if you can slap a label on yourself, then you can possibly claim some sort of victim status and
Hmm.
then, you know, find a way to make it so people can't debate you.
Yeah. Yeah, shutting off anybody who disagrees with you, right? It's like I'm automatically right because I'm like part of this group. That's why I hate answering the like as a woman because it's like I don't know, I've never been in anything else, so
Yeah,
yeah.
well, you don't always think of things that way. And I think that's how you get ahead in life if you're a healthy person is by not always falling. Like, yeah, you can recognize that you are those things, but if you turn it into your entire identity, it's just you're never going to get anywhere. You know, I mean, like technically, I shouldn't have been able to do anything in stand-up when I first started. I was, I am gay and Mexican, so that should have held me back from doing a lot of things. And I exploited the places where, if there was an opportunity for the diversity showcase or something like that, yeah, I'm going to jump in because that's a place that they'll allow me to, or a place that I'll, get another opportunity. But I'm not going to turn that into my entire, like, now that's all I'm doing is just being Mexican all the time, or, going to go invest in a sombrero or whatever the fuck.
Or being like, oh, like I would see this chatter a lot, like, oh, we need to point out which places are safe. Like, what are the safe spaces in New York? Like, safe spaces for women and LGBTQ. And it's like, I don't know. How about you make yourself safe wherever you go because you're respected and you're funny and you don't take shit. Like, how about that? I don't know.
Yeah, well, anything's a safe space if you're a confident person.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
And I don't mean to victim blame, as they would say, but a lot of times when you think about the things that happen, it really does come from some sort of you not watching out for yourself. And yeah, I would like to tell you the world's going to be better, or that people are going to be better. People are going to be what they are. So you've got to watch out for yourself, because I could have ended up in a bunch of bad situations, but I've just quickly realized, I've got to watch out for me all the time. So yeah, I'll perform for rednecks and I'll have a good time with rednecks after the show, at the venue or whatever. But I also gauge myself in the way, like, is it smart for me to go to this fucking party that's out in the desert with these people that I've never met before?
Yeah.
Maybe I should stay at the hotel, or maybe it's time for my part of the night to end. Or if I still want to go hang out, I can find a gay bar in the area or something that's going to be better suited for me, where I don't have to worry about this.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I would see, these girls be like, "Oh, don't go here. Like this guy raped me." It's like, okay, maybe don't like, yeah, drink so much after the show and put yourself in a bad situation. Like, of course, like, yeah, like obviously rape is horrible, but like it's the taking care of yourself part. Like I remember I got so much shit from like the sort of like woke feminist New York City comedy community. Like I had this tweet where it was like, this was early on. This was when I first started to like split off from like the right group. I said like, if you have time to get raped, you're not doing enough spots, because it was that very reason. Like if hey, it's like, that's not happening to me. I'm busy and I'm like, I'm going from show to show and then I'm going home to sleep. Or I'm like not getting drunk and passing out somewhere. I'm not like hanging out with an open cup, Then that I people still mention that. And I said that like years ago. So
yeah, well, I had people get very upset with me during the Brock Turner situation. He was the Stanford swimmer,
mhm.
the Stanford rapist, and he'd been on the swim team and whatever else. And like, and I wasn't even trying to be like funny or mean or anything else. I was just like what I thought kind of good advice, you know what I mean? Because the victim in that particular case, like, completely didn't notice that she was even being raped, and they, like, a cyclist rode by and was like, wait, what's going on over here, and noticed that happening. And I just like put, like, if you're getting drunk enough that you can't feel a person penetrate you, maybe that's your rock bottom.
Yeah, or maybe he has the smallest penis of anyone.
Yeah, one of those things. But
That's
small
still a rock
penises,
bottom, though.
small penis. Yeah, that's a
I
different rock
can't feel
bottom.
it. Wow, my standards are low. Yeah,
But small penises are usually extra annoying, so you really feel them because you're just like,
yeah.
this
You
is.
feel the whole annoying small penis person around you. You're like, I feel all of your issues and complexes because of this small penis.
Yeah, this is insulting on several levels right now.
This is. I know you're having a good time, but this is now my rock bottom.
Yeah, I need a meeting.
I have to go. Let's find a meeting. Oh my God, Ty, you're a delight. You're a joy. Where can people, other than checking out your album on iTunes, where can people find you, follow you, support you, see more of you?
TyRivera.com is where to find me. Also, YouTube, I've been posting quite a bit of stuff lately. And so if they just want to search Ty Rivera, which you have right there so people can see the spelling, yeah, then just search Ty Rivera and you'll find my comedy. And you'll also find, I do vlogs every once in a while, that kind of stuff. So it's fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. This was such a fun chat, and I hope I meet you someday.
Oh yeah.
If I'm on the West Coast or in Vegas. Maybe we'll do a pool party or something.
Please let me know if you do end up out here. And I'm one of the people that will actually show up if you're like, you know, hey, this is where I'm going to be or whatever, or we have a chance to get lunch or anything
Awesome.
like that. And if I end up, you're in New York?
Yes. Please hit me up if you're in New York, for sure.
Yeah, I will for sure. Yeah, I enjoy, that's what I wanted to tell you. I do enjoy your Twitter.
Oh, thank you. Yay.
Yeah, I really do enjoy your Twitter, and we agree on a lot of things. And I can't really say there's anything that I haven't like agreed or have really disagreed with. But like, you know, just like I just always like that you have an opinion that's outside of the opinions that we're told to have.
Oh, thank you. Wow. Thanks,
Yeah.
Ty. Love you.
Independent thinking is underrated.
Independent thinking is the new black. Yeah. We're making it cool again. I don't know. I meant that like in a
I know,
fashion
like the
sense,
black
not in a
dress,
racial
like
sense.
yeah, I know. But I just laugh because you know
Oh,
people would
no.
love to take it the other way and be like, I
Oh,
can't
God.
believe.
I'm constantly stepping in it. All right. Thanks, Ty. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you
Bye.
so much. Have a good night.